My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Ja.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen in TV land and my colleagues on set. You know what time it is. It is Friday, and welcome to Friday Night Debate. Tonight, we'll delve into, we think we have enough ground now to draw a comparison between the CDC and the UP governments. Both of them have been in opposition and as well as headed the government. So we'll take a look at the both of them. How did they do when they were in the opposition and how they have held up in the executive mansion. So we have the best brains on site. Of course, again, we don't have a lady here tonight, but we'll do the best we can to hold the fort. So it is now my honor and pleasure to present to you our debaters, beginning with Mr. Jimmy Eastman. Jimmy, welcome.
Hey, it's always good to be here. Hopefully we can be part of the fix. Our country needs it. So I hope what we do here goes a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Reverend S.T. Salif, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Nagbe, and to all my fellow panelists. I apologize openly. I've been down health-wise for some time, and I think I talked to Mr. C about that. But yeah, I'm back on now. Thank you for having me tonight.
It's good to have you back on. And all the way from the Maple Leaf Country, Mr. Barka Dukle. Welcome, Duke.
Thank you, Brother Nagbe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We also have our resident, I believe, financial expert, Mr. Gabriel Carter. Welcome, Gabriel.
It's good to be here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Our young doctor on set, Dr. Clarence Pearson. Dr. Pearson, welcome.
Mr. Nagbe, it's a pleasure being on your show tonight. Hi to all my esteemed panelists and to those who view and listening in the radio land.
It's good to have you, even though sometimes we run contrary to each other, but we both supported the CPP. We're not
You'll be
ashamed
fine. You'll
of
be
it.
fine.
And let's welcome our friend and brother, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. Brother Sharif, welcome.
It's good to be here.
So, gentlemen, I'm overjoyed to be back here with you after hosting a successful, and that's the key term, successful 50th anniversary of Yola. And after inaugurating a new government, I'm glad to announce that I'm back with you in full effect. So, ladies and gentlemen, our producers have handed us quite a bit to chew on tonight. I want us to really put aside our partisan hats and do Liberia the honor and look at these two parties, because between the two of them, it's almost 20 years now that these two parties have either been effectively governing Liberia or governing the opposition community. And so we want to take a deep dive tonight and see how they have fared both in the opposition as well as their time in the government. How do they stand up to the test for the fight against corruption, the fight against nepotism, delivering our people from abject poverty? There's a whole hit list of subjects here that our producers have handed us. How have they played their roles as opposition political parties? What is their leadership track record? How are they fared on economic development, reconciliation and unity, institutional reform, youth engagement, anti-corruption measures, regional cooperation, and social justice? So we'll do the best we can to cover as much as these topics. So let's get the show rolling. Mr. Sharif, I want you to take a stab at this. Just give us your brief introductory. The CDC as a government and the CDC as an opposition, the UP as an opposition, and the UP as a government. Compare and contrast, if you may.
Yeah, so
You can pick any of the few: social justice, corruption, education, health, whatever.
got you. So it's an interesting topic, and I believe an interesting way to start. And any discussion on Liberia now going forward has to look at that period that you just mentioned, and that period of about 20 years is going to be our matrix going forward, or our measuring stick going forward, because either party has been in government during this 20-year period. And so how have they fared? So regardless, it's going to depend on your side that you're sitting on, or your side that you support. You often see us on this show, either one of us, is talking about the CDC or against the CDC, for the Unity Party, against the Unity Party. This sort of debate is going to continue as long as the two parties are dominant in Liberian society. So what has changed since the two-party two-party system? Not really a two-party system, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, the two parties have dominated for the last 20 years. What has changed? Some will argue that not much has changed, because we had Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who was in office for 12 years. Some of us expected a lot of constitutional changes, such as changes to the presidential term of office, changes to the term of the legislature. These legislations were very bad legislations. They're bad laws that were put in place during the military era. And so Ellen Johnson had the opportunity to do so, to be the leader as she is, to change these bad laws. Because you know what? People have to be held accountable. People have to be, so I always say that the frequency of election is a way of holding, people honest, way of holding elected officials honest. So that has not happened. And because of that, you have people sat there for 12 years and did nothing. And so many will argue that it was a missed opportunity during the 12 years of the Unity Party, that not much was done for the Liberian nation state. Come the CDC, CDC promises reform. You know, the CDC was elected into office. 6 years after, it was worse than the Ellen Johnson years. The Unity Party comes back. Now we're complaining again about those same things and excesses under the CDC. So where do we go from here? I think that's a question that we can all look at, that we can all analyze from our own vantage point. But when I get the next go around, I'm going to talk a little bit about where some of this came from.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Morris, welcome to the set. I believe coming in, you may have caught on to what we're discussing tonight. Basically, we're looking at two parties or a 20-year span of their, being at the helm of either the opposition or the government for the past 20 years. What they have been able to do, both in opposition and in government. So you have your turn later on. Jimmy, what do you say? CDC opposition, CDC as a government, UP opposition, UP as a government. 20 years of our lifetime. That's almost half of you and I lifetime.
You're muted, Jimmy.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Long time. I love the question. I will start with CDC. I think CDC had a unique opportunity. CDC was a grassroots party. CDC mobilized the youth of our country big time. Big time. The people, they were zealous, they were ambitious, they were looking up, they were willing to do everything and anything. But you see, Nagbe, you and I both know that when you're running for president, it means you already got a plan so when you win. And that is what was missing. A concrete, I'm not just talking about a superficial plan, a concrete plan that you can start putting the mechanisms in place right away and building toward your end goal. It didn't appear that they had one, and they were, the experience was one thing, but the whole thing, if you had a plan to go by and how to establish that plan, because you have a plan, but how to build the components of the plan and how to coordinate them, just like any other project, you have to tie in everything. It can't be silos, created in a way that it doesn't connect to the other parts. So I think they had the best movement because they involved the youth, they involved the grassroots. I think they had the more potential. Now the UP, it was very funny because the UP, to me, I look at it almost like the grand old party. That's the party of Kesseley, the old politicians, seasoned politicians, and they only allowed Ellen Johnson as standard bearer because they would have a formidable opposition against George Weah. But they were not synthesized. Their ideologies and their goals was not really in sync. And so, when she got there, when they won, in the first, you could see a whole lot of UP hands in the administration, but after that, it became an Ellen show. And so, like many people, it was disappointing to see that how a professional who has been in development, in international development, how it was lacking. So to put it together, I think we need to have a national plan that the CDC and all the parties sign off of, because this one party goes there, then we start anew, then another party. No, we should have things put in place or a plan put in place that will be completed in incremental stages, one administration after the other. This way we're doing things is not how you build. And that is why sometimes, they have some people take have long tenures, because sometimes you have to build these things in stages. But if we all come to and agree how we're going to get our country agriculturally sustainable, how we're going to do our minerals, are we going to continually allow ourselves to be exploited? Our educational program, how are we preparing for the youth? We should have a plan for decades. But it doesn't appear that people are interested in this. They're interested in the glamour, to get the job, to get the money, but they're not genuinely interested in putting the fundamental blocks down for young Liberians to build on. And I find that missing. So because of that, there's missed opportunity by the CDC to garner all that energy, and the lack of the experience, but lack of sagesse on the Unity Party side, for they too failed to give us a national plan. So I'm not impressed by any at this thus far. I'm not really impressed.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm used to having Mr. C on set as a host, and so I very conveniently failed to allow him to make his introduction. Mr. C, please forgive me, and congratulations again to you, the family, for the young fellows' graduation from Budgetary. Please welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Nagbe. Today has been one of the proudest days in my life. I stood by my son graduating today from basic training at Fort Martin, Georgia. That's why I'm at the headquarters of Focus on Liberia. So I got there, I hugged him, and he couldn't let me go. I won't let him go. And after that, we took some pictures, and he tried to show me the drill, how to take the salute. He said, you can't open your hand like this because the U.S. had never been defeated, so you can't see the part of the pan. And he was explaining all that to me. Proud moment, father and son, it was a good moment, and I'm going to stand by that boy for him to succeed. Mr. Nagbe, I'm glad that you are hosting and you are doing excellent. The topic is unique. Is Liberia's future better off in the hands of CDC and the Unity Party, given their record as opposition and also as government in charge of our nation, Liberia? I will give my intro by saying the two political parties failed us miserably and disappointingly. They didn't build any foundation. When a leader leaves and then no foundation left, that is the most disappointing path they can actually set for the country. What did Unity Party leave with us for the 12 years as a foundation to build on? Is that corruption? Failure to fight corruption? Fabulous salaries for people? Tell me something concrete that Unity Party left with us. This is how I want you to look at the debate here. What the Unity Party leave with us as a foundation in any aspect? Education. First of all, I want to also say the two leaders, Ellen and President Weah, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and President Weah, I don't see them as visionary leaders. Ellen, I see her as a bureaucrat. She's a leader, but she having to be a bureaucratic leader. They want to come and plan and debate and do that. Liberia needs a visionary leader who have a bright insight as to what to do to transform education, to fight corruption, to build roads. You must have that insight, that wisdom, that vision, and then you turn it into a plan, and then it will work. That's what others have done. That's why they are succeeding. Now, if you come to my brother, President Weah, he's not a leader. He's not a man of vision. This guy should not even be a town chief. The fact is, that is not for him. That's just the reality. But what is also true, Weah is love. Weah is blessed, incredibly blessed. The many of us. That is a fact. So you can't fight this God blessing. Some way, somehow, the Liberian people love him for some reason. So I would say we are becoming president. It was a miscarriage, politically speaking, in terms of leadership. And so you couldn't get anything out of a man with no vision, let alone talking about plan for the country. But again, just our Unity Party did not leave anything as a foundation for us to build on. CDC did not leave anything. If anything, they left the two parties, both in opposition and in government. They show us corruption, bad behavior, being boastful, being prideful, and so on and so forth. All of the bad things that were they left with us. Now, when you come to development, what can we really boast of? Ellen could not build us at the airport. Chinese gave us money. Liberian government could not raise money to build that. Just to call it short. What did the Liberian government in the past 20 years, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government and President Wiaga, what did they actually build for Liberia? Just naming one thing. Look at our schools. Look at our roads. Look at every sector in the country. There's nothing you can point out to say, yes, as a Liberian, I think we make a move here. Not one you can point out. Point to. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Let me welcome you, and I'd like you to pinpoint your focus on the point that Mr. C is ending with. Mr. Sheriff gave a brief historicity of these two parties, they stay on the stage. But Jimmy began to introduce the apparent absence of a plan when these parties are in opposition. And it seems to express itself when they eventually find themselves in the mansion. I mean, it took the WIA government, I don't know how long to develop the PAPDP, I believe. The arrest agenda took almost 3-4 months before it was launched. And then it was relaunched, kind of to accentuate the fact that there was an absence of a plan to now include, I think, a arrest agenda for inclusion or development or whatever. But he's making a good point. What is it that these two institutions can claim to have built? Should President Sirleaf lay claim to the airport that is now leaking in less than 3 or 4 years of its existence? I mean, 4-point-something billion for giving in debt, and then she left with over $1 billion, I think almost $2 billion in debt. Help us out here. What is it that we can point to here for which these two parties continue to come on the stage and crowd out all the other parties, including the CPP, if I may add?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nagbe, and hello to the other panelists. Sorry for being late. Look, I'm in a reflective mood this afternoon, so I'm going to try to be as balanced as possible. I'm usually one-sided, but I'll be balanced tonight. Big kudos and big thank you to the Unity Party of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Joseph White. The likes of Dr. Ambula Ducliffe, the likes of Carl Famula, who left and went back home to serve the country, which was almost like starting a new nation after our 14-year civil war. Putting things in place and trying to govern as best as possible, having come from the chaos of war, that's to be commended under the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration. The reconstructions of roads, the rehabilitations of certain institutions in our country, that's to be commended. The fact that we had, a democratic system restored, the fact that we did away with 2 successive dictators in Samuel Doe and in Charles Taylor, that's to be commended. I think on the positive, they helped reestablish our democracy. A lot of people came from the diaspora to try to do their best to help put us on the right footing, put us on the right path to prosperity and to good governance. So the initial effort is to be commended. Coming to CDC, I'm a CDC more and more these days. I want to tell CDC thank you, first of all, for being a strong opposition. Every good democracy needs a strong, vibrant opposition. And I think they played that role excellently when Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was president. I think they could be rambunctious They could be a bit aggressive and in their opposition to the government, but they put their feet to the fire, and eventually they got the mental. CDC, I think, had demonstrably less resources at their disposal to govern with than that of the previous administration of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. George Weah, with all of his inadequacies, if we can say that, maintained peace in terms of relative national peace. There was little things here, people dying here and there, but in terms of the overall feeling in the country, wasn't tension between two major group where people were afraid that war or some kind of unrest could break out anytime. So kudos to President Weah for maintaining the peace, the relative peace of the nation. Kudos to him and his finance minister. I'm no fan of Samuel Twill, but by maintaining incremental economic growth over the 6 years, it seems hard to believe, but through the numbers, like the people can say, numbers don't lie, there were incremental economic growth under those 6 years. Kudos to the CDC for holding elections and allowing opposition to win fairly and squarely. There might be one or two eyeball candidates who had some less than favorable outcome in the way that things were conducted, but for the most part, elections were held. CDC lost most of those elections, and they accepted the democratic voice of the Liberian people. So kudos to CDC for respecting democracy and upholding the tenets of our democracy in Liberia. I'm being a bit, positive. I'll be positive in my first go around, and maybe later on we can go on the negatives. So I think those two, parties has had some successes when it comes to governance, especially upholding certain things that we hold dear in our nation, especially a young democracy like we have. And I think Ellen Johnson Sirleaf had a Herculean task to try to rebuild. And I think just on the issue of rebuilding and reinstituting our institutions, she did a good enough job to be commended. George, we are maintaining without the inflow of external help into our nation, and the external forces that was helping to keep the peace in our nation. Maintaining the peace is something that we should commend him. So I think those are the positive, at least that come to mind right off the top of my head, and maybe later on I can get into some of the negatives. But I will leave it there for now.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Thank you very much. Mr. Carter Gabriel, I hear Mr. Morris, and I'm not going to begrudge him for staying positive. I think that's good. But I'm simply to be hearing us through him lowering the bar. I mean, maintaining peace is what every government is expected to do. Is that something really, really that we should be? I think what Mr. C is saying is we have not seen anything extraordinary from any of these two parties over 20 years. I mean, look right at the Senegal, look even right at Sierra Leone, all over and around us. People are moving ahead. Yes, maintaining the peace, reconstructing some feeder roads and all of that. I get it. But is there anything mind-blowing that we could credit any of these two political institutions with, Gabriel? For the 20 years of plundering our resources, if I should say. I mean, let's be honest.
That
That's what they've
is
done.
that is a great question. And I think when we started, you said perfectly that, let's put away the political hats, right? Take that off and be as objective as one can be to look at these two administrations, right? And I think I would like to maybe not push back on what Morris said. I would like to disagree with him, but I think I want to echo what Anthony and Mr. Eastman said, but in a different way. You can make excuses for the first Unity Party administration, meaning we had just come out of war and they took over. It's as if you just put somebody in a position, they have no idea what they're doing. There was scramble, there was the remnants of war, so they had no idea what they're doing. At least for the first 6 years, we can relegate that to, we can chuck that up and give them that excuse. But following the second term, which at the second term, I think that's when as you rightly mentioned, We had our debt forgiven. We were being led by someone apparently who worked at the World Bank, worked at Citibank, had all the connections. And I think and this is why I wanted to agree with Anthony. Ellen was more of a, yes, bureaucrat. I think is the right word. She never really understood how to function outside of a system that is set up for structure, which is what the World Bank is. There's a structure, you come in, you fit right in. But if you come out of there, it's like you taking somebody who's has been working in a system and take them from them and put them in a startup and say, go work in a startup. That individual will struggle. That's what happened to her, right? And in as much that I think we can forgive the first 6 years, I think for 6 years, that's way more time that it takes to get a PhD. She could have learned and readapt to say, okay, I'm not in the system anymore. This is a new era of where things that I need to understand to adjust for the sake of this country, right? And another thing that I would like to echo is that this is, for those of us in the opposition, those who have political aspiration, this is something that I see common in our society. When I mean society as Liberians, we fail to plan. We do not plan, right? We do not plan. And I hang around a lot of us. We don't plan, even in our personal lives. And the same things that we do in our personal life translate into the government, because the people that end up in the government are just you and I, right? And I say this because 6 years, which leads me into my next one, CDC. 6 years of you watching an opponent, an economy struggled with all the things that the citizens said they need, right? You have 6 years to study that. Just because you're not in government doesn't mean you can study what are the key economic measure of your economy. What areas of your economy that if you were to take over right now that you can just plug right into, put enough emphasis on, and it will make an impact, right? We don't do that in opposition. We wait till the last minute, maybe a year or two before election, before we start coming up with all these made up economic supposedly plans that we just conjure up just for the sake of narrating politics, right? So that's what happened to the CDC, right? They spent 6 years in opposition, in addition to what Morris was saying, right? You spend 6 years in opposition. It's not supposed to just be where you just come and complain, oh, they're not doing it, they're not doing it. Mr. Nagbe, if I were you, if I'm in opposition, I have 6 years to vet people that if I were to take over today, I know who to put as Minister of Education, Minister of Agriculture, and all, even if that means three individuals for each cabinet position. 6 years to do that. I would take 6 years to study my economy, to know every sector that is contributing to our growth and that is not contributing to our growth. So if you were to come in today, if you have any money, let's say 200 million, you know exactly where to put that money to create an impact, right? That is a mistake of the CDC. And Ellen did the same thing in her second term. This is the same mistake we're repeating, that is going to repeat with the next president that's going to come after this unity party. We do not plan, we lack vision. We complain, but yet still when we come in, we expect a great deal of impact from this president. So I think to end this quickly, our failure is not just on the government, but us collectively in the opposition, right? We lack vision and we lack a plan. I will say this quickly in our land. Ghana, from 1960 to 2014, there was national plan upon national plan, regardless of who came into power. Some of those failed, and some of them were successful. Some of them, they planned it, and they take those plans and went to the IMF and said, this is the plan, help us fund this plan. Twice. Even when they were struggling from 1970 to 1983, 13 years of high inflation, right? They had a plan. We have never done that. I think Jimmy was the one who said that. We have never done that as a country. When we came out of war, that's supposed to be the fundamental thing we do. Even right now, the next person who is planning on coming to power, they're supposed to start getting their act in order right now. Planning, understanding your economy, knowing the metrics, politically, from the legal aspect, what are the challenges in the Senate, what is not working in the government. That way, when you come in, you already can hit the ground running without even having to struggle and have these failed start like this current president is having. So let's take away the political hat and let's be honest with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Sirleaf, I think Mr. Carter is ending with something here, and I think this point has been made on this said time after time. You know, the absence of a plan. We all know government is continuity. You come in and you pick up, you know, where Peter left off. You know, but it looks like every government that comes in is attempting to start anew. I mean, we had a poverty reduction. I believe that was Ellen thing or whatever it was. And then the propos, you know, development agenda, and now we have the arrest agenda. So it looks like there is no attempt being made at all to and some of these plans, as we all know, you know, they take quite a while to develop and begin to show, you know, to bear fruits. Is this a mistake, or is it smart political strategy on the part of these two institutions? When one comes, they want to outdo the other, and they seem to entirely abandon what the previous, you know, government started and start anew. Or is it proving to be their own political folly? You know, because they seem to be crumbling under their own weight.
Thank you. I will
promises, you know, promises, big promises, you know, unable to deliver. No car stuck in the mud after 90 days. All of these, you know, big promises.
I will end with what you ended with, and that's why I will end my statement. But since it's a debate, let me disagree with two of my brothers who previously spoke. Brother Gabriel, number one is, you know, these guys in opposition, they wait few months before they start planning. It's not true. These guys don't even plan. They wait till they get inaugurated into the office. Then before they start thinking about playing, like JNB. You sat there, we are call you and consider the elections. You did not put your team in place to start vetting who be ministers, who takes the position. They got there before they started thinking who they put here and started having all those best steps. It's complete foolishness. You know, number two, Gabriel talking about, oh, let's just take it because we came out of war and Ellen. No, I don't buy that. Ellen was in the struggle for up to 30 years from Tottenham, wanting to be president. Ellen been pushing. She was behind all Liberia's problems. Finally, you became president. Something you fought for up to 30 years. You had no plans for 12 years. You did nothing. So I'm not going to use the war as an excuse to give Ellen the task. And then when my brother Elvis says, you know, UP, we are, you know, CDC conducted elections. UP also conducted peaceful elections. That's how we came to power. The first election between JNB and we was also narrow. And JNB people also pushed. They said he should get the result, he should fight. And he also said, no, the papers are there. You can still go back to the search. He said, nobody will die on account of me. Liberia will not be destabilized on account of me. And he also considered the election. It's the same thing we did. So it's not like it's only CDC that did it. JNB also considered the first time they ran. And then when we talk about CDC did not do well because they lack resources, that's not true. Other governments in Africa that took over, they did not have resources. What did they do? I can take you to Gambia, 1989 or so. 1995. What the new leaders in Gambia at that time did, that we have a crumbling economy. We cannot buy expensive car. You know what all his officials were using? Passat. George Weah took over. He did not have money. What did he do? The first thing he started building his condominium. Oh, when you take over a government that has no money, the first thing you go into is to start building condominium, is to start lavishing money. George Weah was giving his wife 500,000, $500,000 in the budget. What did she do with that money in Liberia? So let us not talk about he did not have resources, so that's why he didn't succeed. But let's go to the question of the day. As a sustainable development person, we talk about KPIs, that is key performance indicators. So what are we grading them on? These two groups, what are we grading them on? I wrote 7 things. I'm looking at if I'm going to compare and contrast Ellen, Weah, and Bouaka, I have to bring in their education. That's the first thing. That would be my first KPI. I will talk about their work experience. I will talk about their exposure. Number 3, I will talk about what support that their administrations receive. Number 5, I will talk about security. Number 6, public sentiments, and then longevity, track record. Those are the things I will use to judge them. When it comes to education, Ellie stand out. Ellie is Harvard educated. When it comes to exposure, she worked in the international community. She worked at the World Bank. She worked with the UN. She had the exposure. When it comes to the support, the whole world, no administration in the existence of Liberia had the support that Ellie administration had. The entire world, billions of dollars they supported Ellen with. What did she do with them? Nothing. When it comes to security, she had the United Nations there with her. So money was into the country, security was there. What did she do? When it comes to public sentiment, she was the first female president in Africa. So there was sentiment. Weah is not just popular. Weah is not popular. Weah is not popular. It's soccer that is popular. If Weah did not play soccer, he never would have been popular. It's people love soccer, and it's the soccer sentiment that they attach into Weah, not for himself. So when it comes to longevity track record, like I said, Ellen for almost 30 or more than 30 years, from Tottenham time, Ellen been in the advocacy she wanted to be president. So of the 3, she was the worst. The very worst. If anybody would have changed Liberia, it was Ellen. Ellen had no plan. After fighting for 30 plus years to be president, finally got there, she knew nothing to do. It was all corruption. Social justice. She went to Nigeria and brought copycat of the Nigeria EFCC, Economic and Financial Crime Commission. She brought it at LSCC and set them up. Everybody they indicted, including Kofi Woods, including Musa Belede, Ellen became the personal defense counsel. If you set up a system, let it work. If they indict people around you, let them go to the system. If they are not guilty, then they will exonerate them. But Ellen will get on air and say, if this one, I put my neck on chopping board. She didn't. Then what? You are circumventing the system that you try to set up. So what I can conclude is that Liberia has successfully become an opposition country. When it comes to opposition, we're 100%. We're not a leadership country. We know how to criticize whoever's in power. We know how to undermine them. We know how to do everything to tear them down. Once they gave us that seat, we don't know what to do. So the only thing we are successful at is being in the opposition. CDC was a good opposition. UP was a good opposition, but leadership-wise, they failed completely. Okay, when it comes to Weah, he had no education. He had no experience. Weah has never worked in his life. All he did was play soccer. So he doesn't know how government, he knew nothing about how government works, how the corporate world works, how people sit down and think things through. He didn't know that. So I will be a little less on him. He knew nothing, but he had no willingness. This is what I wrote. Ellie came to the presidency on revenge. George Weah came to the presidency on glamour. He was just using it as a playboy thing, just to bluff and just go around. That's all he did. Joseph Bouaka came for complete grift. Please tell me who is after Bouaka's life that he needs bulletproof car. Tell me who's after his life. Why does he think in this kind of economy, spending $1.2 million to buy a bulletproof car is a smart decision? Somebody tell me. So these people just don't care, okay? Everything Ellen did was substandard. The University of Liberia, the same month they moved in it, things started falling apart. Look at the airport. Weah said he built a recreation park. How do you build something? Liberia, Monrovia is on record. Monrovia is the wettest capital city in the world. So the amplitude of rain, the volume of rain we have, you build something, no drainage. And you say these people are thinking. They just squander money. All the roads Ellen built, most of them she had to build them twice. Ellen's first term in office, The World Bank gave money to the hippie countries, heavily indebted poor countries. 2010, I went to Cameroon. I spent my leave in Cameroon. My host was proud to take me all around and say, see what our roads used to be like, and look at what happened when World Bank sent the hippie money. Go and see what Cameroon did with that money. See the kind of roads they built. Then I came to Liberia, and I saw Ellen just deceive the people. She did absolutely nothing. Ellen was a complete failure. George Weah is a failure. Joseph Boakai is not going to be any better. All that I'm saying, Liberia has successfully prided herself as an opposition country. We can do opposition at any level. We don't know how to lead. So for your question, I said I'll make that last so I close. How do we handle these things? This is what we need to do. And I've been hammering this. We need to create a national think tank. We need to have a conference, create a national think tank if we want to develop Liberia, create a county think tank, create a district think tank. So at the national level, we set our policy that every year as a country, these are the things we want to achieve. So when we go into election, a political candidate should tell us how he or she want to achieve these things. Because government, like I said, is continuum. You can't have one person come and say, hey, I'm doing this. After 6 years, another person can say, no, I abandoned this. We're not going to go anywhere. But
Exactly.
if, like you said, Ghana, if we have a national think tank, the country has a program for the next 50 years. When you run a campaign, tell us how you hope to achieve this thing. Don't tell us what you want to do. Okay, that's the way we can move forward. That's the way we can establish continuity. Let me pause for now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sirleaf. Quite an interesting characterization of our immediate past three leaders. One fueled by revenge, the other fueled by glamour, other fueled by greed. I mean, that's pretty interesting. Dr. Pearson, I will cut this thing easy for you. I'm not going to give you too much validity. I want you to focus on corruption. All right. I'd like you to talk to us on your perception of corruption. You can go back to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, but I want you to focus on George Weah and Joseph Boakai. Considering that about 9 months in, the $16 billion scandal had broken. That was immediately followed by, I think, another $15 million excess money printed, and then the $25 million mop up. I mean, it just started from there and never stopped until we had the sanction of Tuawe and McGill and Cephas, to be followed also by Nukwe, Koji, and Samuel Tuer. Now, we have this government almost every month. There's some scandal from the very inception, even before this government took office, from the inaugural vehicles, that drove them to the campaign celebration, and now to various government appropriating unto themselves funds that were intended for something different. Yet we have yet to hear a peep from this president. Can you draw a comparison contrast between the two? If you like, you can go back to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, but I'd like you to focus more on President Weah and President Boakai. There's someone has another device on. I think there's a feedback. Mr. Cully, welcome. After Dr. Pearson, will welcome you to make your introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Nagbe, for having me tonight, and hi to my fellow panelists who are just coming on. Thanks for the strong argument they made so far. But I would like to just, there's so much to be said, given what I've heard already. I will get to that corruption thing, but please allow me to lay some premise here. It is easy to talk about Liberia and condemn all of our presidents that have come and gone if you do not have a good idea of the trajectory of our country over the last 20 years. So I would take a shot at this by saying this. Each of the three presidents we've had, even Boakai does not even try to own Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He divorced himself from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. and he said he was a parked car. So in other words, he's saying nothing that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did, he can be held liable for it or even praised for it. He felt he did nothing on an administration. So I see them on at a 3 different spectrum. So that's what I would say, right? Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, I was in Liberia, I lived there all through my life, took over Liberia when it was complete wreck. I mean, 100% wreck. If you were in Liberia when Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf took over power, you will appreciate the work that she did. And then you will understand what they mean when they tell you government is continuity. So I think the time that she took to do what she did under her administration was done within the capacity and within the unique education she had and contact that she had to take Liberia for the next 12 years after a total, complete broken system to turn over to President George Manuel Weah what he inherited from her. And if you ask me, I would say she did way more better than President George Weah did in his 6 years. And then I go on to President George Weah on that premise that when he took over from Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, he took over a Liberia in transition politically, economically. The country was turning hands from international driven support to local ownership. And that was a very strategic movement for the country as well. And I think having a populist president at that time was unique again for us to have maintained the peace that we had, because if you look at the much contended elections that we just had, even as unpopular as it seemed to be, he still had up to 49% of the voters' confidence. That tells you that he will a level of influence over the population that was able to maintain the peace that he enjoyed, even though everything was done to tarnish his government's reputation. And so I think if I'm looking at what he did under the transitional period from a donor-governed country, a majority donor-governed and sponsor country, to that of a transitional take ownership yourself country, he did extremely well. And I would say he did better than Joseph Newman Boyka. And why I say he did better than Joseph Newman Boyka doesn't have much on his plate right now to own up to, just 9 months. But I can tell you, Joseph Boyka started this race on his belly. He has not even gotten up from his belly on his knees. He's still lying on his belly, and he has not taken any step to take the country forward. Everything he's done has been a forced stop. Then I go to where I gave some evidence. On security, right? Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did what we call security sector reform and brought our security back up to par. Though not where we wanted it to be, but at least up to par. Former President George Manuel Weah, he assumed national security as a country running itself other than UNMIL running it for Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, which is a plus. So the both of them did well. Under President Joseph Newman Boyka, depopulated the AFL. What do I mean by that? He retired some of the best brains and trained AFL personnel we have in the AFL and retired them to public office, where they're now in Defense Ministry, NSA. And the AFL right now has lost, in as much as we don't have a very strong AFL and still in need of grooming and building, he depopulated AFL. So, and I think that was a good move for him. I think it was a political payoff to them. I'm still yet to be convinced about that. Another thing I see he did in the security sector is that he depopulated the EPS. He depopulated the National Police as well. And these people are hanging around our country with weapons, still have weapons, and threatening the peace of the country, even as President Boyka is leading. This is dangerous time for our country. I move on quickly because I don't have much time. The rule of law. Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf strengthened security sector again to ensure that the rule of law was held. George Manuel Weah respected tenure. Joseph Boyka came and disrespect tenure. Challenged the rule of law to the extent that the Supreme Court had to slap you in the face and then you proceeded wrong. Go back and do stuff the right way. He denied that he would do it the right way. He still have people acting that have never faced a legislature to be confirmed to work in government. They are acting and they are corrupt, like the LTA has just shown us. It's bad for our country. Joseph Boyka is yet to wake up. Let's go to a tolerance for protest. President Boyka has shown no taste for democratic expression of protest, peaceful expression in assembly, no taste, and they've come down hard. We saw this. We saw it with the encamping around the CDC headquarters at those There's some rebel faction gathering there. We saw that, and we saw the bogus drug raid behind the CDC headquarters, where they went there with fraudulent search and seizure warrant and found nothing to be true in the warrant. And today, people got suspended from their job because of those things. It led to a war zone-like situation in Liberia. Lone Star Cell lost revenue because of a whole day wasted with President Barker unprofessional forces acting out of emotions rather than out of professionalism. Let's go to freedom of speech and expression. Under Mount Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the Table Mountain was signed, a protocol to respect freedom of the press. Under George Manuel Weah, he attempted stifling freedom of speech. When we pressured him, he brought into existence the Amara, AKA law.
Abdullah Kamara.
Kamara ain't no law. And he left that alone. President Boyka, he now has a director general at LBS, who is quoting and relying on degree number 20 from Samuel Kanyando military regime, trying to say that he has the power and the law in his hand to close an existing business when Liberians are still looking for job, meaning the DSTV. He's agitating that DSTV cannot give him access to hang on the cable to air LNTV. And the man simply told him, pay $38,000 a month. He doesn't have the money to pay, but he wants to close the man down because he feels it's some form of vendetta. I think that's wrong. That's a threat to our peace and to our freedom of expression. Let's move on to health. Man, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf built hospitals around the country, renovated hospitals, built some modern hospitals with donor funds. President Weah came on local revenue, built and also lobbying for funds outside, built hospitals across the country. President Boyka, he go in there and give small pens and buckets and say he's doing donation to JFK. And he himself can get into plea and go to Accra for a medical checkup or come to the United States for a medical checkup. Everything he said about strengthening healthcare is not to be seen while he cut the health budget on the recast we just did. He's performing dismally. Education. President Barker, Man, Eddie Johnson built schools, renovated public schools in the country after the war, brought it back to status. Former President Weah King, he gave free tertiary education, paid wire school fees. Let me say this: I live in Liberia. There were times our daughters and our girl children were sleeping with men to pay the wire school fee, sleeping with men to pay the tuition when they go to government office to beg for money. Today, it is no more the case. People go to public schools and the tertiary education, public colleges, and they go there for free. That is a good thing. What Barker did, he came here, and the children just paid the highest amount of graduation fee ever since the John Manuel Weah tenure, the highest in graduation fee at the University of Liberia. That's sad for our country. Barker cut down on the budget for education as we speak. The budget in the recast was cut down on education. What are we talking about here? Barker is, let me close quickly by going to corruption. Corruption. Let's go to corruption. Man, Eddie Johnson Sirleaf strengthen our justice system with international partner support. George Manuel Weah came to office. He upheld cases that were held that were ruled at the Supreme Court. He did his part. Let me come down to Joseph Yimon Boyka. Joseph Yimon Boyka was advocating for Brandon Simon even before he got convicted. Joseph Boyka was advocating for Musu Glorious Cat even before she became convicted. And then his tenure, Gloria Musu Cat walked free. What do I have to say? Should I say it was a fair trial? I have a lot of questions around that. I close by saying this. President Boyka is not ready to fight corruption. The same way Mana Eden was not ready to fight corruption. The same way George Weah was not willing to fight corruption. But Joseph Boyka's situation, President Boyka's situation is even worse. Honor President Boyka, Mr. Nagbe, I gave you the statute for corruption in Liberia. Corruption now is legalized. Legalized in the national legislature. Every corrupt money the guys eating in Liberia now, they consider it to be legal. And they will challenge you to the letter that if you go to the court, they will show in the budget that it is there for them to eat free. Even if it's not in the budget, they will tell you say it is all budget expenditure. And then it will justify it, say how it used to be. And then at the end of the day, those money. And I'll arrest my case.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson. And gentlemen, As we conclude this first round, we'll close out with Mr. Dukley and Mr. Colley. Let's prepare ourselves in order to give each other ample time to make our interventions and to cover the rest of the topics. Let's keep it under 1 minute, please. But we'll give Mr. Dukley and Mr. Colley enough time to close our house on this first round. And then we'll begin the second round, starting with Mr. Dukley. Mr. Dukley, I know you've heard all of the interventions made, but let me just quickly narrow down your intervention. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf left us with these astronomical salaries that we're still crumbling under. The weird government came in, they brought harmonization or whatever, and they were also, their votes were harmonized, and right now they're in the wilderness. But before they left, they popularized this supplemental payroll thing. And I know Dr. Pierce was talking about depopulating the EPS, but depopulating the EPS, I think most of the EPS people, it was reported were on the supplemental payroll. They were not regularized. And the government currently, in all fairness to them, they're trying to shrink the wage bill. And so they've tried to find all kinds of ways to reduce the pay slip. The pay envelope right now consumes over 90% of our budget. So to say
the wage bill higher. The wage bill higher now than when they first did the original budget for 2024. The wage bill went up.
Right, but the point being that this level at which it is was introduced by the Sirleaf government. The Weir government struggled with it a little bit, and now the Bwaka government is also struggling with it. And so, make your comparison there, Mr. Sirleaf. Is it a fair criticism to criticize the Bwaka government for trying to reduce the wage bill, even though they seem to be laying off a lot of people and the wage bill seems to remain the same? It's difficult to understand what is happening. Mr. Dukley.
Well,
I think
thank you very
much. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Brian Nagbe, for the question. You see, this is a very interesting question that we need to address. But you see, I think if you go back to shortly after the war, when hostility ceased, and this humongous expectation was put on Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to deliver Liberia because of what I consider to be false perceptions, false expectations, by really making Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to be what she wasn't, and she was able to prove to us and to the world that, with all the fanfare that she came with to deliver Liberia, she could not do anything more than 10% of what people were expecting from her. So what you see today is the trajectory that was put in place by Ellen. And now whoever comes there will emulate that, tweak it one way or another to suit their personal needs or their government's needs, but it doesn't really deviate from the bad precedent that was put in place by Ellen. So if you really evaluate Ellen Johnson Sirleaf 12 years in power, I think the better part of it was in her first term. And the only reason that was the money that poured in from donors, the goodwill, she had to show something for that. And so part of the problem was in any political circumstance, you expect the opposition to be a government in waiting, meaning as the governing party, they are also plotting what they would do when they come to power. In other words, it would be fair to say that they are a government in waiting. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel when a government changes. You just sort of a continue. I mean, and I'm talking about in a normal political environment. So because of the bad precedent that was put in place by Ellen's government, George will just follow through what Ellen started. And so people always forget the fact that we had George Weah running for president of the Republic of Liberia tells you how far we have come as a nation. Because when you look at George Weah had zero, and I mean zero, track record, politically speaking. He was in the Senate. He did not do absolutely nothing that you can point to. And so people were there, you know, they couldn't distinguish being popular from playing soccer to being a popular politician. And you know, he also miscalculated the fact that he was popular, people loved him. But Brother Nagbe, you have to consider the goodwill and the amount of money that poured in during Ellen Johnson's first term. If we had the requisite leadership, the vision for a country that had just come from 14 years of devastating war, to put in place a vision for the next 30, 40 years, no matter who is in power, there will be a roadmap to follow. I mean, Liberia is not the only country on the continent that has gone through civil war. Uganda is one example right there in East Africa. 1986 was when Museveni took over. Yeah, you can argue as to, you know, whether, you know, taking power by force, by military means, etc. But look at what Uganda has done to date. So our problem, you can sum it up in leadership. We have not had the requisite leadership that was prepared to govern Liberia after the war, because all you saw was individuals coming, either being vindictive or they're trying to enrich themselves at the expense of the Liberian people. And so why will Joseph Boakai, being a vice president for 12 years, trying to distance himself from Ellen? Because it was all based on personal animus that developed into political animosity, because Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was the primary support that led to George Weah being president after her tenure. And so we all saw what happened. And so we had Ellen, but Ellen was not anywhere closer to what we thought she was or what we expected her to be. So that trajectory that was put in place is what everybody is now going to follow, as we saw in George Weah. George Weah was not prepared to govern. He did not have the political understanding of how government functions. And so he surrounded himself with all these guys who had their own personal agenda to enrich themselves. And boy, oh boy, they played the game to the letter, and we saw that. And so now, because of the same lack of leadership or lack of visionary leader, Boakai is just carrying on. Look, Boakai has been in government for the last 50 years. Tell me, in the last 50 years, what track record does Boakai have? Is there anything you can point to in the 1970s that he did, or in the 80s that he did, besides being either a bureaucrat, minister of agriculture, managing director of LPMC? Tell me, what else did he do, just besides being in politics? I mean, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was an activist. We saw what she did during President Doe's era. We saw things that she did that actually gave us the hope that maybe if she takes power, she'll be able to do something. Tell me one single thing that Joseph Boakai did In the 50 years he was in government, that gives you the sense that maybe when he becomes president, he will do better. There isn't anything that you can point. You can point, at least in my humble opinion. So really, we are still struggling to come up with that leader, a visionary leader that is going to look beyond the moment. Because you see, always, Brother Nagbe, the political calculus in Liberia is always, how am I going to benefit from this? It wasn't a secret when CDC stalwarts were telling people everywhere that it is now our turn to eat. I mean, this is the same country where people said, you kill my mom, you kill my pop, but I will still vote for you. It tells you where we are as a nation. So all of what we are talking about, you're pondering and analyzing. Look, it's not going to change nothing on the ground until such time we have that leader who is willing to do the unorthodox. Because look, everything begins from the mind. If the Ministry of Education can't even tell you how many public schools there are in the Republic, if the Ministry of Health cannot tell you how many clinics are there in the Republic, everybody is focused on, we are going to fight corruption. But fighting corruption has to be systemic in a way where you have policies in place. Like I was saying yesterday, we have all these agencies, anti-corruption agencies, they are supposed to be complementing each other. Instead, in our case, they are rivaling each other. Everybody is trying to get their sort of a piece of the pie. So until all these institutions come together to work as a unit to advance Liberia, and by that I mean,
Mr. Nagbe, are you keeping an eye on the time?
What I mean?
No, I'm asking the host. Sorry.
Yeah. So until such time that we have that visionary leader that is going to do away from all, because look, Brother Nagbe, everything you see today, this ballooning salary we see this parliamentarian making, allotting to themselves, scratch card, all this nonsense thing we see them doing. People have now come to actually, the people have come to sort of internalize this way of governing as the normal. So it's going to take a lot of education to tell people that is not the way to govern. You know, so we are against something that I don't know if we are going to see it in my lifetime, but I can tell you, CDC government, unit is the two sides of the same coin. We saw 10 months of President Joseph Boakai. What is the tangible change have we seen from the WIA government? Someone help me to enlighten me on that. I haven't seen it. So
thank you, sir.
The arguments are pretty mute when really you're trying to compare unity government, current unity government from CDC government. They are just the same with different names. You know, at the end of the day, they both are there to plunder, and they're only plundering our meager resources that we've got. And unfortunately, CDC will always want to find a way to defend something CDC did. Just like some Unity Party politicians will always find a way to defend something, when at the end of the day, 70 or 80% of our people surviving on $1 a day. And even the dollar on there probably comes from overseas, from remittances that come from their relatives and friends. So why can't they see the people? Brother Nagbe, I heard one Liberian guy said,
no. You're not being fair to us, Mr. Nagbe. Please, let's pass the mic. Come on now. Somebody got to speak up and say something.
He said living in Liberia itself is the work. Like it's actually a work to survive on a daily basis in Liberia. I mean, how much more work can they get? And we are sitting here trying to pontificate about what got us here. I mean, give me a break.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dugley. Mr. Cully, unfortunately, we have to lean on you and put time restriction now. I think I agree with young Aries here who's becoming impatient. But listen, we've been here almost an hour and a half now, and we haven't even done much to what we had to discuss. So we will start with you, Mr. Cully, and we want you to start out our second round. We'll do that for a quick run around 1 minute each, and then we'll bring in our callers. Mr. Cully, I want you to kick us off on this notion. There is an argument now that we may begin to look to a third party beyond the CDC and UP because the two seem to have tried and opposed it, did not make it. So, what do you say? Please use 1 minute to respond to that, and then we'll bring out callers, and then we'll go around.
Thank you very much for welcoming me. I'm sorry that I got well, anyway, I won't say it, but sorry for being late. When I listen to every one of us here, I always think about it. We are very smart people, but I think we are disenfranchised by the lack of system. And every time I come, it's like that's the thing I want to start with. So when you talk about former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, I would say she was a manager and not a leader, which is different. And I'm not, because of the time constraint, I'm not going to go into that. Somebody said this. I don't know if it's an old adage, but it said a big leader, a good leader, always leaves a small void, a small hole. And, somebody who is not a leader always leave a big hole. Okay? Meaning that if you're a good leader, when you leave, the void is very small. People come to function. Everything is smooth. But when you're just a bad leader, when you leave, the void, the gap is just big. So looking at that practically, Madame Ellen was not a leader. She was a manager, and she got in there. That is not a take from some of the things that she did. Now, fast forward, former President George Weah, I happen to have seen him in Atlanta, Georgia. He was not a leader either. He started a supermarket in Florida, it died. Junior professional died. He used to come and play soccer in Atlanta, Georgia, get to a club, ask for his stout. They will create a stout. He drinks a lot of that. At the end of the day, they bring about 300.
You got 20 more seconds, Mr. Cully.
I understand. It looks like the other speaker cast a spell on you, but
Yeah.
I understand. So let me sum it up before Evans get mad with me. So he wasn't a leader either, and I'm not going to dive into that. Fast forward, President Boakai is struggling with the same thing. He left. He took power with $20 million in a Iowa coffers. The reserve was depleted by President George Weah, and then the $20 million when he took over, blah, blah. So now, my thing here is that we talk about the law, okay? And when I learned civics, we learned three branches of government, and the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive. The legislative should make laws. But of course, if you get somebody like
5 more seconds.
Yeah, I'm coming, sir. When you snatch me off my thought, I would just lose the flow of mine. Please. I think I agree with Elvis. You're not being fair here, but it's okay.
I'm shaking my head on your behalf. I'm not shaking my head against you because you're not being fair to you. We're protesting on your behalf.
Yeah, you see, now he's interrupting me. I can't even get my thoughts out. So the legislators should make laws. What are the laws they make it? If you talk about education and you have somebody like, I will call his name, Yeka Kolba, and stuff like that. So how do you put education on one side and then put people in the legislature who, some can write bills and all of that? The judiciary should interpret the law. There are no laws to interpret. If there are any, maybe it's sitting on the desk. The executive should enforce the law. Well, what is the law there to enforce? That's what I learned in civics. Now, before I finish, I have a lot to say, but I will end on this. We talk about people being corrupt. Now, when you look at the law, you have to compare our policy and implementation. These people that take that assume positions, what are the policies? They don't make policies because they don't want to be caught up with their own. So you can see somebody say you have violated your own policy. Based on this, you have violated, then before you apply the law. But tell me, give me policies. Okay, so that tells me that there's no blueprint. And I had the same issue with what's his name? President Weah. When he asked for the blueprint, he said was here. What is the blueprint? And that brings me to not measuring anything. So when we come and talk about corruption, what is the yardstick? Tell the man you violated your policy. According to this ministry, the policy says this, the policy says that. First of all, you're not implementing anything, or you're tampering with implementation. You have violated policy. Against this background, we're going to apply the law. Then the lawyers and the lawmakers can come in, but no policies. Let somebody correct me. And Dr. Clarence, I really admire you, honestly. Being in that place and having 3 schools, we'll talk about that another time, but you've done well. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Colley.
Yeah, I know. I come and finish that.
I wanted 10 seconds to push back before we move on, please.
Okay, I'll give you 1 minute. I'll give you one. We'll come back to you, Mr. Colley. We'll come back to you.
I wanted 10 seconds, please. I asked for it first, so nobody can overtake me.
Let me say one more thing that Evans will take 10 seconds on my
We'll come back to you, Mr. Colley. We'll come back to you. Mr. Dukley. Mr. Colley is alleging that there is no yardstick, but we know the public finance law, whatever we call that, 2024, no government official is allowed to pay more than $45,000 for a vehicle. Yeah, I mean, it's double that figure. What say you? 1 minute. Do we have a reason here to yell corruption under this current government? Mr. Dukley, you got 1 minute to respond to that, please. Are we justified in alleging corruption? Is Mr. Dukley frozen?
No, the man tired talking. You talk for too long. You tired talking now.
I think he's not hearing me. Jimmy, you want to tackle that for us? Mr. Dukley will come back to you. 1 minute. Let's do 1 minute each, guys, in order to do justice. Do we have a right here to allege corruption?
Allege corruption?
Yes.
You know, my word for this, what's going on, is weak. I have never seen such a weak government in applying just what the gentlemen were talking about, policies, restrictions, and rules. You declare your assets from the jump because that is in the law. You need to declare your assets. But none of your deputies, or a few of your deputies, they haven't done theirs. And you don't say anything. Weak. You discover some transgressions in the appropriation of the celebration funds. Nothing comes out of it. Weak. You find people bringing in goods, bypassing PCC processes, all these things we have in place. You say nothing about it. Weak. So I see too much weakness. Nobody wants to put their foot down. Let me tell you, and I'm finished right here. The only way you change a culturally corrupt society that we have going right now in Liberia is to be very, very strict. Zero tolerance. And you are not even showing any iota of discipline, of punitive actions against people who are doing wrong. You think we talk about Botswana, we talk about go to Singapore, go to Ghana, go to Rwanda. You think how those places turn around? Not with weak leaders. And if you don't put your foot down, especially as endemic our malpractice is in that country, nothing's going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman. Mr. C, we actually veer off topic a little bit, but I like to come back here. We came off topic because Mr. Kali had mentioned something I want us to pursue it further. But you did mention something here, and I want us to come back on track. 2005, 2007 UP government, then 2017, 22. Now we have Ellen Johnson 2.0. You did say something here, and I want to give you a minute to expound on this a little more. Why should we look to these two institutions for future governance again beyond the 6 years of the UP government, or should we now look to a third solution to come and deliver us? Let's use 1 minute to respond to that.
Thank you, and I'll take a minute. Look, let us agree that the two political institutions, Unity Party and the CDC, have been given tremendous opportunity by our people, and they really did not serve our country and our people well. So it will be in the nation's interest to look somewhere else. They are not the only political parties. They are not the only leaders. They're being given sufficient time, especially the Unity Party. I heard my young brother, Elvis Murray, giving Unity Party and CDC credit. Really? When you look at Unity Party, when it took power in 2006 after the election of 2005, the whole world came to Liberia. Liberia was being governed by the entire world. You had the United Nations responsible for security. Almost $500 million spent in Liberia from the United Nations circle alone. That's exclusive of what the government was spending. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf had a tremendous opportunity to do so much good, but this is why I'll tell you much. From RIA, the Nation International Airport to Monrovia, the road was not paved. It ended up becoming a death trap. That failure is humongous. So you have internationalists coming to Liberia every day, and they needed to use that route. And Ellen did not have the vision that this road is major. Let us pave it. She failed to do that. I will leave Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. President, we have. Look, everyone is talking about keeping the peace. Their minimalism is not going to suffer. Comrade S.D. Sirleaf couldn't have nailed it properly. What are they supposed to do? Not keep the peace? Were they coming to just give her another war? So to give them credit for keeping the peace is like telling these people, come and sit down and just gather in the money. Let's keep the peace. Because that's basically what CDC are doing. President Weah is keeping the peace. President Weah is keeping the peace. You know who kept the peace? The Liberian people kept the peace. They were not prepared to engage in any violence whatsoever. To give the people credit and not give the Liberian people credit? What are we giving them credit for? For so much money paying them? Well, let me come to your question. I am debating that what did these two parties leave with us, either when they were in opposition or in government, that we can be proud of and build on? Name me one. Anybody, I challenge you, name me one. Ever Morris keeping the peace. I can become president and keep the peace. You think keeping the peace going to look? Someone who is hungry today will not appreciate the peace. A child who is not in school, the mother will not appreciate the peace. So what kind of peace are you talking about? Peace, being peaceful and being hungry, and not lack of opportunity for young people being on drugs? That's the peace you're talking about? Oh yeah, they are peaceful, doing drugs, right? Come on, man. Now we have our president, President Bouaka, who is not a leader. Let me say that quickly. President Bouaka is not a leader, period. He declared this drugs crisis as a national emergency, and guess what? In the budget, he reduced the budget of something he described as emergency. Is that man a serious man? This man has committed more money for his car than what is an emergency in the country. What does that tell you? $1.2 million set aside for car for him and his vice president. And let me tell you the amount he set aside to fight drugs in Liberia, $400,000. Comrade Sirleaf, I'm glad you're here. I'm ready for this debate. Bouaka set aside $400,000.
Thank you, Mr.
To rehabilitate.
Correction, not Sirleaf.
Bulldog.
Yeah, he budgeted $1.2 million for cars alone for him and his vice president. Is that man a serious president? Is he going to change anything? I rest my case.
Elvis, thank you, Mr. C. Elvis, I'll give you a chance to respond. Do that in 1 minute.
I think I got to run a campaign. Mr. Nagbe is not fair to me, but
I agree. I take that. I take it.
No,
I'm proud of it.
I will say this. I will say this, and it's no offense to the Liberian men that's on the panel. If Liberian men will go to therapy, the first thing I will ask them, Say something good about your wife that you like. Give me 5 things that you like about your wife. Most of them will have problem in saying 5 good things about your wife. That's how we are as a people.
I don't
It's
believe.
hard for us to take a step back and look at some of the good things that some of these, our successive government has done. The low hanging fruit is criticism. Sometimes it's good to take a step back, put things into perspective, and have a constructive conversation. It's easy to criticize. We criticize on this platform ad nauseum, and it's tiresome, actually. Sometimes try to find a positive. That's why I took a different approach, because we can sit here and say, oh, Joseph, I'm not doing this. Joey, I didn't do this. We know these things. We're not stupid people on this platform. We know all of the pitfalls of the governance in our country. We know those things. Nobody is reinventing the wheel by criticizing ad nauseum. We're tired hearing it. Like we're looking for solution.
Thank you
But
so
even
much.
more
but
is to appreciate governments for doing some good things.
yeah,
Everything in that
Nagbe,
country is not bad. They have uphold
Nagbe,
the country, and we still have a nation, but we've made some incremental progress as a people.
but
Thank you.
Thank
Nagbe,
you, Mr.
official.
Mr.
Barrett.
It's
Nangwe.
too
Mr.
superficial.
Sheriff,
How can you compare the buy so low? Then you said they're doing something.
Jimmy,
I,
we're coming
I
to you.
wonder,
Mr. Sheriff,
Mr. Nangwe.
Mr. Sheriff, Mr. C is alleging Mr. Morris is being minimalist. And I said that earlier that I think we're lowering the bar if we just maintain a peace. It's such a big deal. But what do you say, Mr. Sheriff?
Comrade C has called all of us at some one point or another minimalist. So I'm not surprised by that. So but look, Elvis is right. Sometimes you have to take a step back and just look at things for what they are. But what I would like to say is that in this just 1 hour, I mean 1 minute, under 1 minute presentation here is that this has been going on for a very, very long time. It's what I was trying to get into, but I can't do an elaborate, expose on it. But this has been going on for a very long time. So you have to go back to Charles D.B. King. Brother Sirleaf said Elling is the worst president. Are you kidding me? Charles D.B. King was the worst president in Liberia. So, and you can look that up. So, it didn't get fixed then. Then his, Tubman took over, who was a mentor, who directly benefited from Charles D.B. King. And he actually appointed Charles D.B. King as ambassador to the United Nations. And this sort of corruption, this sort of ineptitude continue from Tubman. Then it gets to Tolbert, who tried to do something. And J. Victor Nangwe and others, they said this was not good. So we have to protest.
I'll still give you 10 seconds. You will call my name.
So it was not good enough. It wasn't good for us. So now we go to Doe. We go to the military era. We come to Charles Taylor. It has never been good. So the question is, what do we do? That's where Elvis is right. What can we do now? What can we do? Can we look at someone else today? Can we start talking about someone else who we all can join so that we can start fixing this? That's where I'm interested in right now. Who can we start talking about? Who can we start talking to now, back home or here, that come 2029, that we all can rally around? Boakai is not running in 2029, so let's think about that.
So,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nangwe, real
Thank
quick,
you.
let me just chip in something because my name.
Well, I was coming to you, but I wanted to knock Mr. Cully off his stool.
Yeah, Victor's name was called also, so he need to respond to that.
He said,
no, go ahead, Mr. Sterling. I'll give you 1 minute, and then we'll take Mr. Cully. Dr. Pearson hasn't come here. Mr. Dukley hasn't come here.
Yeah, I want us to keep our eyes on the mark. Okay, the topic for tonight is Liberia better off in the hands of CDC? That's the topic. And
if not, should we look elsewhere?
Yes,
right.
That's where the failure grade is coming in. So to say We should not do that. We should just be minimalist and go for those low-hanging fruit. It's precaution. Okay. Now, Dr. Pierce he's a PhD. So he's been going to school for so long. You know that failure is not graded on individual subject. Failure is graded on your average. So you could make 90% in some courses, 85% in some courses, but at the end you make 60, 50, 40 here. It will drag it down. Your overall average is where you pass or fail. So when we say Ellen is a failure, Weah is a failure, Baka is a failure, we're not saying that we're not little things here they did. You bring it in Charles D.B. King. How many $1 billion?
What is your solution now? What's your solution?
Coming. No, I'm coming. How many billions did Charles D.B. King receive that you going to compare him with Ellen? Ellen received no.
I don't have time. I don't have time to come in and do that.
Yeah,
What's
but I'm
your
coming.
solution?
Yeah, give me a chance. Ellen, there is
Sherry,
no
stop
administration.
interrupting, please.
Yeah, there is no administration.
We better get here, master hosting the show today. You want to chastise everybody?
There
The
is
number take it easy, please.
There is no
Mr. Murray, behave yourself, please.
There is no administration in the history of Liberia that have received the amount of international cooperation, collaboration, and support that Ellen received. Today, there's nobody on this panel that can tell me in the past 20 years, Liberia has got better. If you say that, then I will really have to think twice.
Liberia we can say that there's no war in the country, but not dying left and right. That's a positive.
Are you kidding me?
That's too minimal.
Yeah, it's a positive, my man. What we go back to the previous 20 years, you put the last 20 years?
Okay,
come on, man.
So are you expecting, Elvis, that when a government comes to power, they're supposed to bring chaos? Every government on earth is for peace. So why are we going to start grading somebody because of peace? And we are saying this, the Liberian people, when it comes to peace, they deserve the credit. They have exercise restraint. Look at what happened in other countries. What their youth would do, Nigeria, Kenya, other places, because of their corrupt leaders. Liberian people have exercise restraint. The peace goes to the Liberian people. They have been fighting for it. Ellen Johnson was president. I was in Liberia when all the people that took the UL entrance, they all failed. And a president who appointed the president of UL, Ellen, from her own mouth, I will quote her. Ellen said the Liberian school system was substandard and it was deplorable. And you are the president. You will make that kind of statement. It's an indictment on you. You're supposed to fix the system. So when we're saying these people fail, we're grading them on the overall average. We're not grading them on individual subjects. So they were all failure, and Bwaka is following just the same. He came on the premise of rescue mission. I don't even know if he knows what he's doing. The man is inept. He doesn't even know what he's doing. And then I hate this thing that, I hear people all through the community. Bwaka is a good man. It's just the wrong people around him. Nonsense. A good person will appoint good people around him. He's a failure. That's why he can't even discipline anybody. So when the CDC say it's a witch hunt, I support them because I have said and I will still say.
Boy, you say if you say witch hunting, then you are a witch.
This guy is depressing our morale for our country, man. So negative.
If Bwaka was there to fight corruption, the first step he would have done was his campaign chairman. His campaign chairman would have been indicted because the first person that stole was his campaign chairman from the inaugural funds.
Thank you.
And he had done nothing.
Mr. Cully, I'll give you 90 seconds. You got 1 minute and 30 seconds. Go ahead. You can still call me whatever you want to call me, but you got 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. Now I have to move as fast as a bullet. So where do I start from? This is what I will offer. I will offer that we have a case study of Liberia. And from that, I think we can collect data and be able to do. For example, I listened to a program before, and there was one Dr. Tolbert. I know Yenswa or some. You can correct me.
Yeah, the late.
He was, He's not late though.
Oh, you're not late. Sorry, I think.
Yeah, Dr. Tolbert Enswa, something. He was in charge of that malaria program in Liberia, and it's a Columbus.
Yeah, Tolbert Enswa.
You see, so we don't even have, we're not privy to that data. Okay? So if you were to ask me to be in charge of malaria, the first thing I might do, collect data samples and see where the killer malaria mosquito is at, whether it's in Nikutown, or go to the hospital, collect, data sample, people who have been infected by malaria, where exactly they're coming from. Are they coming from Town or Nikutown? Create data, database for that, and then come out to find out where the killer mosquito is concentrated. Maybe it's coming from Buchanan, so maybe we can set a checkpoint. Anybody coming from Buchanan should be tested for malaria before they enter Monrovia. But it seems like he just did his own thing to provide information to the pharmaceutical company. So we don't have anything to work with. We don't have. When I was working for Medshare, all the people in Atlanta, Georgia, that Medshare is an institution that provides all medical equipment. I was working as a biomed. We used to refurbish equipment for, they call it, developing countries. We even took medical equipment to JFK, but those were all equipment. I felt sad. You can go there, you pay $10,000 for a container, 40-foot container, and they'll put all these old things in it and ship it out. I work on some of those equipment. Okay, and so where do we come from? We don't have we're not a data-driven society. And I want to challenge Dr. Pearson to use your school as a model. Write something to the Ministry of Education and say, this is the direction we should be going, so we can have impact. Access road from Rawalspeed International Airport, all the access roads are dilapidated. If you went there right now, you say, okay, I had $100,000. A friend of mine actually did. He had $150,000. He went that fucking clone road there. He paved it and all of that. He tried to put toll there, and they said no. They took the toll out. He said, but what happened to my money? How can you bring development? Take a 1 mile road, develop it, put a toll there, so that you have 4 or 5 people create job. They will sit at the toll, rotate, shift. They get paid, you collect revenue, you pay taxes to the government, and then, you get a job, you got a role. But none of that we don't have. So when I talk about blueprint, Waka comes, where is it? Where is this oversight? There's no blueprint. So how can you implement policy? I know Sharif, my brother Sharif is smiling there. He's like, you're too harsh. Forgive me if I'm too harsh. And, somebody said, I think it was Ellis, he said we're critical. I agree with him to some point. Liberians were critical generally. And most of the time, what I have studied about us, most of the time, you can tell the way we even talk. We don't get reference to anything. You will hardly find a Liberian man say, I read a book or I listened to a YouTube video or blah, blah. Everything. I the one talking, man. I tell you, I was there. I said, the man is my man. That's how we talk. Because we're not from a data-driven society. And because of this, it stuff up creativity. You can't have a trademark. You have, you are ingenious. You have creative mind. You can't make anything because the flea market idea is that as soon as you see, you'll copy me. So how do I get a trademark for my idea? And so when you have a close-up society like that is not data-driven, that is not involved in technology, nothing, so all the money will disappear. Lastly, I listened to another program. There was this thing in Belgium about the embassy move and blah, blah, blah. And the president was saying they took all these paper documents. You take paper document, you carry it to your whatever house it is. How can you trace any money that was used? I can call Brother Nagbe and say, hey, we ate $1,000. When I call you, don't say anything. And I bring the paper. But you can't bring the computer data. And this has been over and over. I have said it over and over. And nobody seems to be. And Brother Eastman, when I listen to you, you have a lot of experience. It looks like you have a lot of you here are so intelligent, extremely. I don't mean to, pamper.
No, man, go ahead. Explain me. You're too old. We get it. You mean that woman? Go ahead.
No. Our people need help. Let's come together and come on a model. So I will offer a case study because half of the time we have the political situation, the campaign that is extricated from the actual governing. And right now, when you talk about all that modern stuff, a lot of the common people in Liberia don't even know what you're talking about. They're not engaged. And this is the problem. So a few of us that feel a little bit educated, we talk about it. It sounds like we criticize them being hashed on the government and stuff like that. But again, it has to be a mixed bag. Some of us have to be critical, and some of us have to be, flexible. That's how this word is run. That's how I've seen it. And I would stop here with two things that I've noticed. You have the absolutist, who would say it's good enough, leave it, don't touch it. You have the relativist that would say it's good, let's make it better. But the question is, where are we balancing this when it comes to studying the issues in Liberia, the political situation? And by the way, the education minister is doing great. She started on a good note, trying to create a data system for all the schools, provide numbers to the student so that you will not leave Zozo from 6th grade and can't jump into 10th grade in Morovia. She's starting that. Let's give her a little credit on that. She's alone. She's coming from the States. They're trying to do something in a country that has nothing to build on. So I want to use some of my minutes to somebody there who wanted to say something before their time. I see Sherry wants to say something.
No, you can let your minute to me. I only want to take 3 minutes.
2 minutes.
No, thank
You
you,
don't have
Mr.
anything to
Cully.
say.
I now understand your definition of fairness. I gave you 90 seconds, you took 5 hours, but I get it. That's okay. So we have only Dr. Pearson. Dr. Pearson and Mr.
We got to open up the phone, Joe.
and then we'll have the callers coming in.
Mr. Moderator, we have to open up the phone so people want to participate.
I was just saying that, Jimmy. So we'll have Mr. Dukley and Mr. Dr. Pearson take 1 minute each, so that we can bring in our callers. I think they want to be a part of it. So, Mr. Dukley and Mr. Dr. Pearson, I want you to really speak to this question. We haven't addressed it. We've already had Shirley, Ellen Johnson Shirley. We've had Weir now Bwaka. Bwaka is basically Ellen 2.0. You can argue that if you want. Boema Kamara was in the government. Gafua was in the government. AB Komar, so that's Ellen 2.0, whatever you want to say. We are waiting in the wings. You're bringing Koji and other people, all these people back. Should we now begin to look beyond these two parties and move to other institutions? I mean, there were other institutions before them. So we'll go, Mr. Dukley, 1 minute, and Dr. Pearson, 1 minute.
I still have my 1 minute.
Oh, Gabriel, I apologize. So you will, after Dr. Pearson, you will go. So Duke, you go 1 minute, and then Clarence will go 1 minute.
Yeah, Brother Nagbe, this is kind of really, really hard because it's kind of
do your best. Do your best.
It's gonna limit it in a lot of way. You can't really get delve into. Anyway, I think it's but you see the way the Liberian have been conditioned now to these two political parties, unless you try to bring in some individuals who would be who will have a different mindset than what we have had, either in an alternate party or in the same CDC and UP, whereby people will start thinking differently than what we've been seeing over the last 30 years. Because everybody's always playing catch up. Okay, I think these guys have gone so far. I think we need to catch up with them, and I mean that in a bad sense of the word, where we compete to outpace each other in terms of corruption. To the point where people are actually blatant in what they do. So until we can find somebody who is going to be unorthodox in both parties, actually, that will help us to change, our way of thinking and the way we look at governance.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was muted. Thank you very much for staying within time. Dr. Pearson, let's be honest. President Weir relieved Charles Shelley and others from the bench scandal. We all know that. We all know Minister Two and all these people will be released. It's a game. And, should we continue to have these two institutions dominate the scene, or should we begin to look elsewhere? Please take 1 minute and respond to us.
The honest answer to you is that it is difficult now to have an individual who can dominate the unity party led government or the CDC opposition party. And the reason for that is that Liberia is driven not by political ideation or ideology. They are driven by popularity, and they're where the popularity lies right now. But Sam Wolo, listen. When it comes to finding solution, I'm not elected officials in Liberia. I don't get paid as a minister or whatever for agency. We elect people, and my money that I pay in Liberia as taxpayer money, pay people for the job that they are doing. I'm not here to provide them solutions. I'm here to critique them on their job, and they have the responsibility, professional, to look between the criticism and form an opinion moving forward. I'm not here to spoon feed them. If I'm here to provide solution for your weak and dysfunctional government in Liberia, then fire them all and take me to Liberia. Let me run the government myself and get paid for doing the job. And I want to say that to you particularly. Move from behind me here, move from behind all your solutions. We are not paid to provide solutions. We are paid to discuss the issue. And last I would say, Mr. Nagbe, frankly, I think Cummings is the best option. Mr. Cummings is the best option. And I pray that, and I've communicated with him, if he can take a drastic action to do things in Liberia that will help remove people from poverty and see tangible impact on their lives, then he can make an impact for consideration. But if they're just the old rhetoric, vote for me, I will change your life, the Liberian people ain't waiting for no more CP. No more.
Yeah, they may get all the business South Africa and do nothing like bro for the people and say,
Bro, that one not true. That's not true.
You know what, Evan? You keep thinking everybody 5 seconds. Will you let
Mr. Nagbe, give me 5 seconds. That's y'all.
Yeah, let Dr. Pearson.
After the solution,
got 5 more seconds.
It's erroneous to say we don't give solution. When we say somebody weak, they don't enforce the law. That's a solution. Enforce the law. When they say you bring somebody up for corruption and you find somebody, it means you should pursue it. We give you solutions. We're not just. I don't understand what they're looking for.
Don't mind saying what you have blood pressure. You know what I mean, Mr. East.
I think I'm at 5 seconds, right?
Go right ahead.
Reclaim your 5 seconds.
Yeah, President Bwaka and myself live in the same district. And I can say this for a fact. I'm not boasting. Mohammed, I'm not boasting. If you call 20 people in my district, they will tell you tangible things I'm doing in my district and doing across Liberia. They can show you nothing President Bwaka did, whether in government or outside of government.
We'll vote for you next election season. Gabriel,
are you running for something?
No, not yet.
That's usually the pitch.
You cannot answer, Dr. Pearson.
You got to run.
So I'll be very quick, and
and Gary, before you come in, let me inform our callers. They can start calling in because we'll be coming to them in the next minute. The number to call is on the screen: 605-313-6004. The code to text, there it is on the screen. All right, Gabe, go ahead.
No, I'll be very quick. I think we've done a good job in terms of beating on the government, in terms of highlighting some of the things that their shortcomings and the things we expected them to do. And I agree with all of us here. A government is supposed to be the first responsibility is protect your citizen and make sure your citizens are well taken care of, which we can all agree. But if you look at the fundamental issues that is withholding Liberia, in addition to the corruption, we are also limited in certain ways in terms of what the presidents can do and what they cannot do. And I would say this without divulging too much information. I was in New York on the last Thursday at the UN General Council. And you can take this, I'll be very quick. You can take this up and look back over every president. We talked about Ellen when she came in, how much money that came into the country. You can go back and look over the quantum of money that came into that country, how it came in, who brought it in, and how it left in our country. You can look at the same thing when we came, there was practically nothing. I say this to say, in as much that there is corruption and there is, reluctance on those people that we elect, the leaders that we elect, in terms of lacking vision, there is also a limited aspect in terms of on the private sector side, meaning if you, Mr. Nagbe, was a wealthy investor who want to bring, let's say, 500 million in Liberia, you're limited to do that. I'm not going to go into too much information why you're limited to do that. but you will be limited to do that, meaning you will get pitched through the powers that be to say this is the only way you can bring in that money, and you cannot bring it in all at once. It has to be done in tranches.
Right.
That is a fight that personally I'm taking on right now, because I think that is the strong hand that is over us, because we were one of 3 people who pitch the government in terms of investors that we want to bring into the country. But the quantum of money that they want to bring in cannot be done because of the limitation in our financial system.
On the banks?
Yes, in this, exactly, right? So if it has to be done, we will have to do it in bits and pieces. That turns away people. Let's say you have $500 billion you wanted to bring in. You want to bring it in all at once. You cannot do it, right? Because of the limited system that is there. And the reason why I say we shouldn't put all the blame on the president.
Gabriel,
because
what is the rationale for the limitation, though? Do you have any concept on that? Is it because
okay? So I will be clear. This is a personal fight that I'm taking on, and I think every president who came in, I would say Tauber figured that out. Charles Taylor kind of alluded to that, but he wasn't too serious about it, and they took him out. Right now, if you want to bring in $1 billion in our central bank, in the government, you can't do that. It's limited. You know why? Because if any of us right now want to send money through Liberia to wire it, do you know there's an intermediary bank that it goes through? Do you know why? That's that limitation. And because the reason why, because our SWIFT system hasn't been updated, and they refuse to do that. They refuse to do that for a very strict. And this is why I urge any president who come in, if you want to do anything serious, that should be your first order of the day. Update your system at the central bank to make sure you have updated system at your SWIFT at the central bank. So you remove the intermediary bank. So if Mr. Serif here want to come in and say, I want to bring $1 billion to just do public-private partnership deal with the government, I can wire in that money all at once. Simple as that. But they refuse to do that. And every president that come in, they go to the powers that be and they say, we can't do that. We can't allow it. And of course, they have their reason to do that too, because of the corruption. But you have to chart your own path and take that barriers off of the country. So this is why I say we can put the blame on the president for the corruption and some of the things that we've seen, but there is also a structural hold on us. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Food for thought. Let's open the line. I hope Mr. Wall will be the first caller, so here he can express some of the stuff he's writing and trolling people here. Mr. Sid, thank you very much for waiting so patiently, and thanks to our callers. We're ready to hear them. Let them come and be a part of the show.
You didn't let all of us take our 5 seconds, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, well, after the calls, we will be closing.
Yeah, Darling is on the line. Darling, you are live. You have a minute.
Thank you, Anthony. So I heard the moderator talking about suggesting that we should look to a third party because the 2 parties, CDC and UP, have failed. The issue with Liberia is not a party. It's not an issue of party. It is a system. It is a corrupt system that was put in place by those American Liberians who first left our country from 1847 to 1980. When those established a Tauber in 1980, he said he did that because of the corrupt system. And when he too started benefiting from the system, he didn't touch it. He didn't demolish it. That's not going war 1989 because of the system. He started the system. So he too started benefiting. He left the system. So it has happened with all the past presidents. So we're not going to, if you call a third party, are you going to go to Mars or Pluto to bring aliens to rule Liberia? It's going to be a Liberia. And one of Liberia, you bring in a Liberia, it's a system that's going to meet that, and it's the system that's going to direct your path. We have to get rid of the system.
Darling?
The system of corruption.
Darling? Yeah. Yes, others have argued that the system may not be our problem. The people operating the system. So we have a people problem, as compared to a system problem. Let me give you an example. Manchester United I've been a football team since the 1800. I think 1819 it was started. They never won the Champions League. But when they got a good coach in Pep Guardiola, they started winning the Premiership. I think they won it like three or 4 times in a row now. They're competing for the championship. So it's about people, management, and not necessarily the system.
Right. People, the system is right. You are right. The system should not right. People know the system. People run the document.
Exactly.
So we need. I think our problem is we have leadership deficit, and not only that, we like ourselves. It's not serious. We sit there and just go along with everything that's somebody does. It's all that the mentor. When John got to somebody said, "Oh, that the mentor. Why are you telling the mentor? Let them be your. Why they get be your?"
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation. We have leadership deficit, and Joe Barker, let me say life economy. Joe Barker is not a leader. Joe Barker 5 decades he stayed in government. All he did that was to collect salary and benefit.
Thank you.
Joe Barker is not a traveling someone. He's not a chief agent. He is the commander-in-chief of a person who collects salary and benefit. That's what he does to respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Hassan Kone. Mr. Kone, you are live. You have a minute, sir.
Yeah, Anthony, thanks for taking my call. Great show tonight. As far as what Darling was just contradicting himself. Like I said, we have a leadership problem, and the only person that can solve that problem, to answer Mr. Sharif, is Alex Cummings. We all knew it. All the educated folks on this platform know how hard it is to work in this country, especially in Western country, and make it that high and make it all the way up to where Cummings went. For during the campaign, we was looking for winnability over capability, right? People were supporting George Weah and how you call it, Walker, because they were winnable candidates. And Elvis Morris was supporting, how you call it, not George Weah, not because Weah was capable, but because he was winnable, so was everybody else that came on the show.
Yeah.
And as far as, this whole corruption thing and stuff like that, I put it back to the educated Liberians. All the well-educated people on this show, they have people that are loyal to. I guarantee you, if you criticize somebody in the Liberian government right now, that anybody on this show that we're friends with, went to school with, they're going to come to the defense. Like, I'll give you an example. If somebody says Senator is corrupt, somebody that likes Senator will say, oh, but did you go to court? That may focus on we have to take Senator to court to prove that Senator or the action that he did was corrupt, right? So it's us that keep manipulating, keep moving the goalposts when we like this person, and then we try to manipulate or distort the truth or the reality of that person. So it comes right back to educated Liberians. So if we're looking for a party that's supposed to go there and change it, we should support Cummings. We should support well-educated people that left or that have worked hard in this country, that have no, that have no record of corruption. No way.
Thank you.
Right? And support that candidate instead of looking for ways to nitpick. Oh, he didn't open school here. Oh, he opened business in South Africa. Oh, right? Instead of actually saying, listen, this person is capable, instead of winnable, and we're going to support this person no matter what. That's what we have to do to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to set a record straight, we got a fact check there. Cummings got businesses in Liberia, Elvis. You may not know them, but he got businesses in Liberia. That is an established fact.
The man just had his third graduation of the school he's sponsoring. They just talk.
Let's go to the next caller. Yeah, caller phone number ending in 5472. That's Bindu. You are live.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the show. I would like to start from Ellen. I've been kind of listening to the conversation. I think one of Ellen's downfall was we all know that Ellen fought against government or against leadership since the Dole era, or maybe even before that.
Since Tubber, not Dole.
Okay,
Since Tubber,
we know that. And because she was considered educated, she was able to sell. And unfortunately, along with those of our Liberians that were in the diaspora, were able to sell to the international community and the world as a whole that she was a leader and she was educated. So they bought her with sold them. But when she came to power, she had to satisfy those that have been fighting along with her. So she did what she did because, it's not so much she wanted to keep the peace, but she had to satisfy her people that she's been fighting with for all these years. And then we brought in, and we are after her. We all know that Weah is not a presidential candidate, but he was a populist. And also, I think he was a bridge between the warlords, the everyday Liberian. And And so we gravitated towards him. Those are that believe that he didn't bring any war. Yes, he's not educated, but he helped some Liberian people and put them on their feet. So maybe he can do something. And we know that not only that because he was not a leader that had him to fail, the people that he brought around him, they were deceptive and selfish. And unfortunately, we got a lot of us that are like that as Liberians. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's a fact. We don't say what we mean, especially to our friends. And so they use the time around him to enrich themselves at the detriment of the other Liberian people. And we got Boakai now. I was in Liberia 3 weeks ago. I stayed 2 months in Liberia. And my heart ached when I was there. Especially when I used to see young and vibrant men, women, graduate. Some of them graduate from high school, some of them graduate from colleges. That everything market women helps to support them to put them to school, and they don't have anything to do. We got people that are qualified, sitting down doing nothing all day long, and nobody's thinking about their future. But one of the things that really affected my heart was when I saw a young child, that's one of those boys that they can call Zogo. I hate to call them that name because they are our Liberian children. When I saw that boy and I saw the wound on his foot, till today I'm kind of traumatized from that wound. And we chung them, we stone them when they come around, we chung them, but these are our Liberian children. What are we doing? We got this man that we brought to the leadership based on our same deceptive nature. We know that he couldn't do anything, but because the people around him think that they can use him to get what they want, not what the Liberian people need, we brought him to power. And we see what happened to our country. I mean, yes, it is true that maybe the people that was working, especially when you talk about those that are laying off, maybe some of them were not doing anything, but they are Liberians. And so if you are laying them off, think about how they're going to survive. Find something for them to do. Have an alternative. What is the alternative?
Thank you.
It's heartbreaking. I'm telling you, I was in Liberia, and I told myself, like, where do we go from here? How can we get away from here? But I think one of the things that we need to do, we need to get away from this friendship mentality. If I know that you can't do the job, I need to look in your face and tell you, I like you, you're my friend, but let's find somebody who can do the job. Let us use our vetting process properly. Those are all that in America. We see for you to be employed to any job. They don't just interview you. They do background check. They talk to people who know you. They talk to former employers because they want to know what have you done, what you can do, what you bring it to the table. So maybe we need to do that with our leaders.
Thank you.
Maybe if we got people who got some track record of what they're doing, they will succeed.
Thank you, Beno. Thank you, Beno. Well said. The vetting process is key, and I tell you guys this much: President Baka rejected the proposal to vet people before even appointing them. No vetting process whatsoever. Zero. They didn't do anything. All the people they appointed, they were never vetted. Now one person can put their finger up and say, I was vetted. Now one can tell you. This is sad. This has been a banking government for all these years, and he did not vet anybody. And he just appointed on the basis of tribalism. I think you heard me, right? Tribalism. All over people.
Comrade, you gotta stop that.
Comrade, I'm telling you the truth. That's the fact. I have the fact.
Okay.
They never vetted anybody. Ask your man, Double Jara, whoever, whether you ever vetted. Okay. It was all friendship. Oh yeah, that's my man. Oh yeah, the man from the party. Oh, the man supported the party. Right. Those Baka appointed, how they supported him, or from his clown or loafer somehow. I'm not saying some of them are not qualified. Okay. But the qualification was way behind.
No, but Anthony, even if you are qualified, you still got to be vetted.
That's it.
Even if you are qualified, here in the U.S., people that they appointed, they are qualified, but they still vet them. You know, you can't.
The man got elected in November. He came to America. Yeah, he was watching show. No vetting process was going. He was chilling up to inauguration day. On day one, the man appointed a single person. Day two, they have to rush to him and say, "Papa, you can't do this." He had a little booklet in your hand, and people were thinking that he had a list there, and it was empty. He had nothing there.
And he recycled all the people from LA administration.
And now we're getting Gafwan and Kamara and Kurman and Soso of those people in the past, as though we don't have anybody. Anyway, that Unity Party can do whatever they like.
But if you guys go to Brand,
the colors I have for you, brother.
Thank you very much. All right, gentlemen. Gentlemen, we're way past Mr. Collins' bedtime, so we.
Okay, so can I say one?
Let's do our closings. Let's take 1 minute each to do our closings, so that starting with Mr. Collins.
Okay, so I want to say something to what Brother Anthony said, which is very important. I think we, our government, also was accused of putting some Eastern people, which is very bad in our country. I'm from Lofa, and if that's what Bwaka has done, President Bwaka has done, we need to put that in check. It's wrong. Having said that, but I think the previous government was also accused of that. Now I want to also go to Dr. Pearson. Dr. Pearson, you can't say you can't provide a solution. I think that's one of the benefits of education. And, we have to provide solutions, and no matter what, to improve our quality of life. Our quality of life. It's something that we have to do as much as we know a little bit than the other people. The last thing I want to say is that, talking about system, when Brother Anthony was talking about system there, system is holistic. So even the human factor is part of system. You cannot, in order for a system to run, all of the components have to work together. Take, for example, the vehicle that we drive, some of us drive. You can't have the brakes broken. It's a system. You can't have the brakes bad or malfunctional. You can't have it without gas and operate. You have to also have a driver. And by the way, there's one particular component in that particular vehicle that has to do with negative and positive. You cannot take out the negative polarity, even though as negative as it is, and the car will run. So a system is holistic. You have to have all the components working together. The human factor is very valuable. When you come to computer system, the same thing. When we build computer system, whether it's digital or not, we have what we call user policy. We have to build a user policy. For example, how they access the system, how they use the system, what time they can log in, what resources are available to them. And we have to set levels. Level 1, you can you privy to one of this information. Like you go to the bank, level 1 person is at the counter. They can't see other things. Before they see other things, you have to bring level 2 in to override something, or level 3 to override something, privileges. That system. So we have to understand system in a way that it's not just you go build something, you turn your back on it. So when Brother Anthony was talking about people, people are part of system. And that's why you have to put policy in place. You can't run a government without policy. So right now, all of us want to help. And again, I was picking on Dr. Pearson, but he's right in some way. How can we help? There's no blueprint. Okay? And the last thing I want to say, the vetting process. And the caller was talking about that. How can you have people, you just take them and put them there? Even in, I don't know if Ellen Johnson Sully, President Ellen Johnson Sully did that. Sam Dookie's son was somewhere here. He got his MBA. He just finished his MBA and he started a clinic job. He didn't even pick up. He has not done anything in MBA to understand it. And boom, he was an oil refinery. Okay? And they put him there. He was holding a big position. So a lot of these guys.
You mean Jackson or Dookie?
Jackson. Oh, thank you, my brother. Okay. Jackson. Yeah. And he was there. We all know the guy, not that he didn't do his MBA, but he didn't have any experience. And a lot of these people are like that. They go, do a quick company. There's opening here. And then you go to Masamadesco school, you get your document, go, you end up there. You know? And so these are the problems we have. And so when we talk about system, let's put financial system in place with check and balances. And by the way, the political scientists are here. I don't want to say anything bad, but I don't believe it's political science, it's political philosophy anyway. But if we're political science, we have the science today.
Yeah, you didn't want to say anything. Even that,
Yeah,
I didn't want to say anything. All right, my man. Look, enough. You're digging yourself too
I
deep.
see why you like bringing this guy on his show.
I know, right?
He's a riot.
Right there. I leave that right there. But
All right.
finally, what I want to say is that the brother was talking about money being channeled. Part of the problems we have is nobody look at those technical issues. Like I remember when Charles Taylor was there, they brought in, it was in Daily Observer, I read, businesses that Liberian can do and businesses that foreigners can do. That stuff was
You're
published.
coming up next, so be ready. Go ahead, Mr. Colley.
It was published. And so right now we have the bottleneck he's talking about. It's just going to be something he's going to talk about right now, and it's gone. Nobody is actually saying, let's look at the political system. Is it functional? Let's look at the financial system. Is it functional? Let's look at the educational system. Is it functional? Let's look at the social dynamics of the country. Is it functional? Let's look at the age group, the youth. When President Weah came there, he gave motorbike to people. Most of those guys dropped from school. Who's going to be our next president when the guy is on motorbike?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Okay. So, all right, I'll stay right there.
Are you okay?
Yeah, okay, I'll leave it right there. But it's still, when you think about it, you think about the Liberian situation, you can't help but just, feel bad about what we daily experience in that country. You know how you have educated people, you have people with skills, but there's nothing you can say, this is the conduit. This is how you can intervene. It's not there. Point one to me. I want to be part of it, but how?
Thank you very much, Mr. Colley.
We'll put your name in the basket. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know, right? Mr. Dugle, guys, let's try to keep it at 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Brother Nagbe, and thank you to all.
And let's not forget, as Duke is coming in, we're still keeping it within context. Are you better off? Should we continue with the two or look to a third source? That's where we were tonight. Thank you. Do go ahead.
Well, I'm going to come back to my earlier point. We need to change course. We need to bring in people who are going to think differently than what we have had. And what that would take will include re-educating Liberians. We need to recondition Liberians so that they can start trusting their governments again, so that they can actually believe in their governments again. And that will only take a radical person who is going to be willing to make the hard decisions, who is going to be willing to do the unthinkable. Because right now people have been used to mediocre as normal. People have been conditioned to believe that the way things are, that's how things should be. I was talking to my brother-in-law, who happened to be the environmental person in charge of Firestone, and he said to me, the difficulty he had is telling people that what they've been doing for the last 20 years is not the way to do it. So that was one of the challenges that he had in Firestone. So I think that's true right across the Republic of Liberia in terms of our political system since the war ended. So I just hope that people talk about Cummins, and it doesn't have to be Cummins. It can be anybody who was who was trained and went to school in Liberia. It could be anybody. You just have to have the political will to do the unthinkable. And like I said, again, the unthinkable is deviating from what we've been conditioned to, actually. So I want to thank everybody, and it was a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Mr. Dukley. Dr. Pearson, are you ready to go? Let's keep it on 1 minute.
Yes, I'm ready to go. It's sad I have to disagree with my own dad, Dr. Dukley. We don't need anybody. There isn't anybody got us here, and elections have consequences. Look, I said we agree whether or not Burger has anything to show. Now look where we are. You know, we don't want any other. We agree. I think Liberians do not look for rhetoric. They look for tangibles. So that's why they get them a bag of rest, they get them t-shirts, they get them caps, get them small things to get their votes. I think we need a third option to answer your question. I think Mr. Alexander Cummings has a proven record, you know, of performance in his professional career. I think he can do the same in Liberia. And then all other things here, constant things of people political disagreement. I don't fault anyone for the political disagreement, but I want to just speak directly to Mr. Cummings. Get involved now that it is not too early to get involved. Get involved if you're still interested. And I want to say, pilot the things you want to see when you become president. Pilot them. Pilot agriculture. Pilot like you do education. Pilot education. Pilot healthcare. Pilot everything else that you want to see in your government. And then be able to point to that in 2029 and say, I did this without your verdict to lead. If you give me the mentor of the leadership of this country, I can double this, or I can make this a reality across the country. Pilot those things. And that's what I've recommended to him. And I hope he can listen to me. And the people want to see someone who can show them something practical that they can do to change Liberia. And unfortunately, no matter how you ride a pen, it will never tend to a full runner. In President Walker is a pimping.
Thank you. You know, I'm reading this Wallo guy. He's a very interesting guy. Okay, so yeah, of course, if the 99% is proving to be incapable, we'll give it to the 1%. That is your answer, Mr. Wallo. Mr. Shirley, you're closing.
Thank you. You know, let's go back to the topic. Is Liberia better in the hands of the UP, the CDC, or should we think about others? None of us on this show would say Liberia is better for the past 20 years. Nobody can boldly tell you that since 20 years we're in a better place, we're in a good shape. That would be a complete error. But how do we get better? I mean, the system, the leadership, these people have failed us. We can go back and look at the Singapore model. That's what I was just looking at. The Singapore model. Singapore was also a third world country. What did they do? They came in with some systems that I took out 3 strong ones. One, meritocracy. Okay, it was a system they put in place. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. Can you do the job? Do you have the merit? Appointment by merit. And I will use this simple analogy. If you've been to a crude town, sorry to anybody from Grand Says, River, wherever, you go on the beach. It's not everybody that push the canoe in the water that get in it. It's only the people who understand the water, who know how to catch the fish. They don't say, oh, I push the canoe on the water, I must get that. But that's how we do in Liberia. Every appointment is based on how many people campaign for this person. Whether this fool is qualified or he doesn't even know what to do, he must be in that office because he's a partisan. It's dragging us behind. Let appointment be purely based on meritocracy. When the canoe come back from sea, it breaking all the fish because the professional fishers got in the canoe. Those other men are still on the beach to pull it back on shore. So everybody should have a role. You can't say because this person campaign for me, put them there. Whether they know what they're doing, they don't know what they're doing, just put them there. Another thing that took Singapore from a third world to where they are now, accountability. Liberia will thrive on the culture of impunity. People can do things, we just let it slide. Ellie enter a pact with George Weah. You support me, you protect me and my family. Weah could not go after Ellie, so he could not hold anybody accountable under Ellie's administration. So they went 6 years, they held nobody accountable. Now, Bouaka comes on. Instead of starting from his house, charity begins at home. The first attempt in corruption under Bouaka administration was his party chairman, inaugural money. He cut the money that they gave 5,000. This man accepted that, yes, I did it. Bouaka still appointed him. That's when I knew this man would never fight corruption, because that is the first person he should have set example with. Grispe, everybody doing everything. Bouaka just sits there like he doesn't know. Ellen, when she was trying to go back for second term, 5 seconds. Israel Arkansas, he embezzled money from Lone Star Cell. Israel Arkansas confessed that, yes, he embezzled. He entered an agreement with Lone Star that he would pay. While that case was going on, people went to prison for that I knew. Israel Arkansas were in Ellen office and they were discussing. These people are not serious. That's what's dragging us back. And the final thing is we need pragmatic system. That's the third thing. One of the things that Singapore do. Those three things. Pragmatic system. It doesn't matter. Let us have our own system that we can operate. The Singapore people said, listen, it doesn't matter what system we use, whether you bring in white rat or you bring in black rat. The question is, can it catch, no, sorry, the white cat or black cat? The question is, can this catch rat? That's what we want to know. So those three systems, meritocracy, accountability, people should not just get off scot-free. There should be accountability. That culture of impunity, we got to put it away, appoint the right people who can do the job, and then let's be pragmatic with our system. Let's do the right thing, and we can be a better society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shirley. I believe Mr. Carter has not gone yet. And Mr. Sheriff, I think, will be the last.
Evis has not gone too.
Evis has not gone yet?
No, not yet.
All right, Gabe, you go. Have you gone, Gabe?
No, not yet. I'll be very quick.
Okay.
To answer the question as to whether Liberia is better off, I think it's very obvious. And I think I will agree with everyone here that we need a third option. We've tried the Unity Party for 12 years. We've tried the CDC for 6 years. And we are here again on Unity Party 2.0. And from all of you, what we've seen so far, the ship is running into an iceberg and there is no captain there to steer it away from that. I will propose, for me, and I will stick to this, and I think this is by it, Mr. Colley, to answer your point. The bottleneck that I know that is in our financial system, for me personally, that is my personal fight to get rid of that, to take that kind of stronghold from over the country, because I believe that way any investors can bring in any quantum of money without anybody overlooking us and having to control our financial system. So that's a personal fight. But in terms of I would say this, and I'm being a little bit lenient. I think we put too much emphasis on our government, what the government can do. I think we also need to look at the private sector and what the private sector can do in its, in helping the government create jobs as well. So I think sometimes we come out here, we just relegate all the challenges to the government, but I think the private sector has its own responsibility. And I think the limitation in the private sector, again, goes back to the lack of systems in our financial system, which bottlenecking all the private sector individuals. And this is why you see people in government, in the private sector, they can only go to a certain level, then they're capped. Then the only way to go beyond that, they have to go into government. We've seen it with the current commerce minister, right? But if we take that bottleneck off of us, right, nobody will even want to go into the government, because there will be so much growth in the private sector, so much to do in the private sector, that the government will just be there to be able to relegate, control, and relegate those systems, right? So for me, I think I would say this: we need a third option, and all of us can agree on here. The question is, we know what we want. Are we going to make the right decision comes 2029? That is the problem before us. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter, Mr. Morris, and then Mr. Sherry will close us out.
Look, Mr. Namwe, if I laugh, I will cry when I think about Liberia problem, right? Our problems are multidimensional. On certain statistics, we rank dead last or near it. When it comes to IQ, we're the second worst country when it comes to average IQ of our citizens. When it comes to educational attainment in our region, we're probably the least when it comes to higher education. When it comes to the population of people who have tertiary education, college degrees, we're very, very, very low on that list. So it's a heavy lifting that is required to lift Liberia up. One good leader would be good, but when you have 70 to 80% of your population as a liability, people who don't have the education or the skills, or even the vocational skills to really help the country, they're really depending on government and low-paying jobs and just low gig jobs. you're going to find it hard to, to go anywhere anytime fast. So this whole thing, when we're talking about it, we try to compare Liberia to Singapore. I would say something that might be controversial. Maybe as a people collectively, we're not smart enough. We probably just don't have the brain capacity to build a functioning society that can propel itself through ingenuity, to prosperity. We probably lack that ability. I hate to say it, for 170 something years, we still get dusty road all around our country. Our people still living in mud huts in villages. We haven't transcended, you know, to a civilized people. We're still living as a third world country, regardless of how old we are. So for me, it's depressing. The more I think about it, when I look at the problem, it's depressing. That's why I wanted to be alone, joyful tonight and give a positive spin to it because we know our issues. We know how far back we are in our region and on a global scale stage. The reality is, our people, the Liberian people,
Elvis,
we
can I
are
get
our
10
own
minutes
problem.
of your time, Elvis?
We are our own problem. You can tell the time you want. I get the energy to
And
follow
that's
nobody today.
why
I'm just
you do
disheartened.
it is.
Elvis,
Yeah, you
can
can
you
tell. You
give
can tell the time. I mean, I'm for doing nobody disheartened. That's it. 10
okay,
seconds. I did tell it.
All right, take 5 seconds
okay,
and wind
thanks,
up.
Elvis. So, Elvis, you
Let's
don't
let him
have.
land.
Okay, so I'm gonna piggyback on what Evans is saying. It comes down to the same system thing we talk about. For example, we have a government that has not prioritized internet. There is no telecommunication system. How do you mail something? If I want to send something right now to that country, how do you mail it? It might get missing. And there's no way the kids can learn when they are not globally connected. There's that data system. Look at Kenya. Why you can't research all these other
Those
African
are the
countries
those are
that
the
have?
basic things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Why you can't research places like Kenya and other places that have good internet? How would the kids learn? They're not globally connected. You have to pay for data, pay for data, pay.
I
He's
hope Mr.
right.
Waller is listening and paying attention.
Yeah, Mr. Evans is right. It's so bohemian, to say the least. How can you take care of basic issues? How will your issues be ameliorated
Thank
when
you,
you
Mr.
don't
Cully.
have internet?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Kali Kisman have a next Thursday and Friday.
Mr. Sheriff? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Dr. Pearson, what was that?
Thanks, Evans.
Mr. Sheriff, go ahead.
yeah. So just to pick back from where Elvis left off there, it sounds like from what he's saying, and I agree. It's so exhausted that if you pick an area, you can go on and talk about that. You pick education, you can't end because it's rotten. You take healthcare, you can't end, and it's rotten. So everything in the Liberian state is problematic. It didn't just start now, though. So what do we do is my question. So let us think about that and not wait till 2020 to start to do something. Let's do something 2025, 2026, 2029 may be too late. So you have some charlatans that will come out of the woodworks and they will be elected president. And speaking of the system, I think Benju the caller talk about that. That system has to go. I mean, the system in place now is not good. We talk about the Constitution. We can look at the Constitution and start from there. And so, and then look at ourselves. When Ellen Johnson was elected, who were the people in government? Some of the very people in the diaspora. I hear my good brother, the good reverend, all the criticism, but take my brother now, take him to Monrovia and give him a job. And all the criticism will go away. Will go away. And then he becomes part of the system. See, that's the problem with us.
That means you don't know me.
That's the problem with us. But Reverend, let's look at this very show.
The man know Liberian man. Know us as a people.
When the moderator will say, just 1 minute, guys, what do each of us do? We take 3, 4, 5 minutes. Look at yourself. Look at myself. That's the example right there. So don't go far. The moderator will say, look, guys, I give you 5 minutes and we want to go for 10, 15 minutes. What is wrong with us?
Brother Sherry, if you accomplish here, you achieve something, you would do something in Liberia.
What is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us is we don't even see what we do ourselves. Ellen took those very people and took them to Liberia. The same people. And what are they doing now? Nothing.
Yeah, but we're saying the same thing. Sorry to
And
interrupt.
so
we're saying the same thing. If there were not the culture of impunity, if people were going to prison for these things, other people won't be bold and brazen to repeat them. That's what we're saying.
all right, so I will reclaim 5 minutes.
No, go ahead.
Because the Reverend just
5
did.
minutes or 5 seconds.
Okay, but anyway. So that's the issue we have. We have to continue to talk about this. This is a very, very interesting topic. We really have to talk about it because if the system stays there, whoever you put there tomorrow is going to replicate. That's why I went back to 1920. Look at us. Today we're talking about this. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the same thing. 2029, we'll probably...
But Sherry, there's no data for 1920. There's no data.
There are a lot of data. We have to read. Somebody said we're not reading.
Sister Cole.
Nobody is reading. Nobody's reading. Nobody
The
is
same
reading.
problem you're accusing everybody of is what you're doing. You're taking over 2 minutes when they give you 1
he has
minute.
taken 7 minutes. I've been
But
counting.
the guys are interrupting because they don't want to
Of
hear
course.
it.
5
They
seconds.
don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear what I'm saying. So they're
We
interrupting.
interrupted you at the 6 minute.
They're interrupting. Okay, I'm going to stop now.
Have
Reverend,
the rules. Have the rules, mom. Have the rules.
Go ahead. You got 1 minute.
Reverend,
Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and stop. Okay, but let me tell you, do something. All the criticism, we've heard it. I've done it myself. I continue to do it. Let's just do something.
2029. We assure you.
Gabriel, is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Sell the country, share the money.
Dr. Ferris Pearson for President
Let
2029.
me thank you all very
I'm
much.
Mr. VP.
I believe
The rules are good. Yes. The rules are good. Yes.
we had a great show
I don't
tonight.
have to be Gilbert said the private sector. That's better.
We had a great show tonight, and I think the audience were also very much alive. But listen, let me be honest. I will not be apologetic about proffering the option of a third source. We, in a good number, some of us here on this set tonight, we paid a price for these people to come and occupy the space that they're occupying. And we will not allow them to abuse it. 20 years.
Freedom fighter.
20 years to be on the stage. I'm telling you. Liberia, I'm not a statistician. I don't do the analysis, but I will venture to say Liberia has produced the most sanctioned government operators under the Magnitsky Action. The act was passed. Ellen Johnson got 2 of them. We alone got 6 of them.
Oh, I think Russia has more.
No, I say Africa.
Okay.
Africa.
If you include the word, then Donald Trump administration.
The way President Walker is going again, if he's not careful, they will soon bring down some sanctions. It's not because the people don't like them, it's because they're not doing well by our people. Let's be honest here. You know, we also put the government when they're in power, we want them to succeed, but we also have to call them out. And this government has been there almost 9 months. Look at what the Commerce Minister is doing. I mean, let's be honest. Look at what is happening at telecommunications. All of these scandals are all over the place, and this president he's taking forever to even make a decision on LDEA. So the problems are all over the place. So if we're calling for us to begin to look to another source, I think that's justifiable. Anyway, having said all of that, this is going to be a great weekend. My Eagles have a bye week, but my Phillies are getting ready to start the Red October. I'm all excited, and I'm looking forward to that. I hope you all are looking forward to something.
Reverend. They'll beat the Eagles again next week. They beat them last week.
Having said that, I know Ms. Garcia is probably fast asleep now, but if you can come on with our jingle, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a great night. Some of you who will be joining us on Sunday, let's not forget On Point will be airing at 4 p.m. Eastern. I believe you are all invited to come and let's continue this conversation. But you did great tonight. Thank you very much.
Reverend, let me just introduce.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our